but she said, trust me, these are the stories we will tell. As I stood frozen, infinite, I almost fell, but I got a feeling and my heart starts beating, a sudden rush of feeling alive. This is freedom and I won't change, I won't phase out. I'm no ghost, let me
Stop the time, hold your breath, you're the only one I see. Breathe me in, taste your lips, you're the only high I need. I'm losing control, your eyes entice me. Just letting go, your hold is tightening. I feel you rushing through my veins. Our bodies getting closer. Your heartbeat drives me insane. I feel you taking over. I feel you rushing through my veins. Our bodies getting closer. Your heartbeat drives me insane. I feel you taking over. You're the only high I need. I feel you taking over. I feel you taking over. Take me high, break me down. You're the flashing lights I see. Catch my soul, lose my mind. You're the only trip I need. I'm losing control. Your eyes entice me. Just letting go. Your hold is tightening. I feel you rushing through my veins. Our bodies getting closer. Your heartbeat.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Badass Women of Hearthstone tournament. I'm smileykris, and today I'm joined by dragonrider DK. How are you going?
Hi, I'm doing well. How are you today?
I'm doing great, and I'm really excited about the match we've got for everyone today. Two of Asia's best female players, and I think it's going to be a great one. So we've got futureshock up against CaraCute. Both players are at 5-1 in the tournament, so doing exceptionally well. And a win today will pretty much cement their place in the top 8 heading into the playoffs. So, Dwayne, can you tell us a little bit about what decks the players have bought today?
Yeah, absolutely. So for CaraCute, we're looking at Cloning Gallery, Priest, Secret Hunter with that Subject 9, uh, Odd Rogue, and OTK Death Knight Paladin. And for Future Shock, she brought Even Paladin, Odd Rogue, more of the faster, more mid-range version of Hunter, and Even Shaman.
So some interesting choices there. CaraCute opting for sort of the all-round sort of build, whereas Future Shock's gone with a little bit more of an aggressive sort of mid-range lineup. Were they fairly standard lists when you looked at it, or were there some interesting techs in there?
Overall, they're pretty standard. There were a couple differences, it looked like, in the Odd Rogue deck lists here. CaraCute is running a Captain Greenskin, whereas Future Shock has the Cobalt Scalebane, and Future Shock also has a Crystallizer as well in there, so a little bit more early game. And CaraCute has a King Mukla. So it looks like, they're both running a Void Ripper as well, so, they're maybe flipping some boards there, but yeah, a little bit of differences in those lists. And in terms of looking at like bans and what we'd expect there, I think in terms of Future Shock's more aggressive lineup, I definitely would expect a ban either in the Priest or the Paladin. I just think, those decks have a lot more tools to deal with the aggro. The Priest has a lot of the board clears with the Spirit Lash, Mass Hysteria, Psychic Scream, and the Paladin with, things like Equality Consecration or the Wild Pyros with Equalities, anything like that. So I definitely would expect to see one of those bans there.
Yeah, that's interesting. I think it's a difficult choice for her because that hybrid hunter that CaraCute's got there also has quite good matchups into a lot of Future Shock's decks. So yeah, it's a difficult choice there with the ban. What about from the other side? What would you expect to see as a ban from the other side?
This one was a little bit more tricky for me. It feels like if she wanted to ban one of the aggressive decks, Future Shock just brought so many aggressive decks that maybe banning an aggressive deck probably wasn't the right choice there because, it just leaves too many other aggressive decks. So I kind of definitely see a Paladin ban there being pretty reasonable, just taking out that ability. And, even Paladin can do really well against Hunter as well. So I definitely understand and think that maybe a Paladin ban could be pretty good.
Yeah, I really like the Paladin ban there too. I think even Paladin has good matchups quite across the board there, and could pull out a win against any of those decks. So, I'd agree with that. Yeah.
We do have the bans in, correct?
Okay. What have we got as the bans here?
So, actually is Paladin from both sides. So we will not be seeing any Paladin today at all. So I'm going to be really interested, I think, to see how the Hunters line up and how the Priest does.
Definitely. Okay, so we'll jump across into game now and see what the players have decided to go first with.
So what kind of matchups do you think you expect first?
Can escape my fury.
Well, we can actually see that both players have gone with the Ogborg as their first deck. So we're going to have a mirror here, and it'll be interesting to see whether those slightly different builds that we talked about earlier have a bearing on this match. CaraCute on the coin, that's always a difficult place to start off with in the Old Rogue, trying to get that tempo back. So she'll be wanting to have a strong start here to overcome the advantage of Future Shock playing first.
Yeah, absolutely. And what kind of things do you think that we're going to expect from the weaponing here between, in the mirror match with one person going first and having that advantage, like you said?
I'd expect CaraCute will be looking to dagger up on turn 2 here. She's got the follow-up of the Thug if Future Shock doesn't have anything on board, or she can even creep her first and then head into the Thug in a later turn if she needs to take it a bit slower. Being able to tuck that Hedge Clan Thug behind the Tar Creeper is a really big advantage in terms of protecting it from her opponent.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Tar Creeper just feels like such a good anti-aggro card, so even including it in aggro decks to deal with mirror matches or against other aggro just feels really good.
So I think that's a super interesting play we just saw from CaraCute. So she actually chose, rather than playing out a minion and then losing that minion to the minion that her opponent had on board already, she chose to coin out her dagger there and just take down the minion.
Yeah, looking at her hand, she just has so many possibilities, and even on this turn, she can just hit for 2 damage and re-dagger, to set up for that Hench Clan, or she could possibly play out 2 different 1-drops here and try to set up to be ahead on the board.
I really like taking the board here.
Yeah.
I think there's so much value in being ahead on board in the Odd Rogue Mirror.
Absolutely. No,
And what would you expect to see Future Shock go with here?
It feels a little rough having that SI agent right now. She just can't play it quite yet, and even if she could play it, the 2 damage on the opposite minions just don't do much right now. She could hit in with the dagger and then use SI agent if possible to clear the 1/1, but that's not really what she's looking for there. Everything just feels a little bit bad for the positioning because CaraCute has this weapon plus the minions on board. So even if she plays out, the Flappy Bird here, it's just going to get killed off so easily.
Yeah, and it's always an interesting question about whether you sacrifice one of your power minions, like the Vicious Fledgling, into a board where you can see it's going to die, or whether you hold off for a clear opportunity to play it. The danger of taking the route that she has here is it's quite slow on board, and it's likely that CaraCute can play something else out this turn, sort of further cementing her position as being ahead here.
Yeah, absolutely. I think maybe in Future Shock spot, you might just have to, like you said, you might just have to play out one of those threats and pretty much know that it's going to get traded into, because CaraCute just coined out that dagger. She went just swinging basically onto the board in the early game. So it's going to be a struggle for Future Shock to try to come back into the game.
And I really like the slightly slower route that CaraCute's taken here, playing out the Tar Creeper before she puts that thug down. If we can see that with the SI in hand and the weapon up, the thug would have been able to be answered had it just been played onto the board. This gives her an opportunity to just sort of tuck it in behind the Tar Creeper and make it more likely that it sticks around.
Yeah, definitely. And even the way that CaraCute played this out, it gave her the options. Like you said, she had that option to play out the Tar Creeper, but depending on what Future Shock did, she could have used the Deadly Poison if she needed to, or even played out the Deadly Poison and take maybe use the Cold Blood even on one of those small minions to try to take back the board if she needed to, again, to help protect her future minions. Unfortunately, she won't be able to play Hench Clan and re-dagger this turn. She did already use her coin, so this could be a chance for Future Shock to try to take the board back a little bit.
Yeah, so she has an interesting choice now between re-daggering and having that dagger up ready for next turn, giving her a little bit more flexibility then. Or perhaps just playing out something like Cold Blood SI this turn and really just start pushing some of that damage face.
Yeah. I actually kind of like maybe a dagger, Deadly Poison, and Cold Blood here, and just really continue that aggressive push that she started. She could use the Deadly Poison dagger to take out the 3/3, maybe even Cold Blood on the Tar Creeper, and just keep pushing face as much as possible. She now sets up her dagger for next turn for the Hench Clan, and she's, again, keeping that board.
So she does choose to do the play that you discussed there, putting the Cold Blood on and starting to push some damage. And we can see that that the Fungal Mancer has picked up there, so that gives the opportunity for Future Shock to clear that 7/5, but it does mean putting her face into a 7 attack minion, which never feels good.
Yeah. And another difficult thing here for Future Shock is that she just doesn't have a 1 mana thing to play with that Vile Spine next turn. So she really has to choose if she's going to try to just take that face damage, like you said. Can she afford to do that this turn, or is she going to wait and try to risk drawing a 1-drop for that Vile Spine next turn? She might just have to take that out this turn.
Yeah, we saw her use her last 1-drop to combo out with the SI a couple of turns ago. And obviously with so many 1-drops in the deck, it is quite likely that she will pick up another one at some point, but just doesn't know at this point whether it'll be soon enough. So it looks like she is going to take out this Tar Creeper while she can.
Yeah, and another thing I think she has to consider too is that if she doesn't use that Fungal Mancer this turn and take that out, she's going to be taking that 7 damage to the face anyways before she could maybe kill it next turn with Vile Spine. So I definitely like that there. Just, you're going to take that damage one way or the other, so just take it and get rid of it.
Yeah, I mean, if she had have been lucky, it might have been slightly less damage, because the Tar Creeper obviously gets the +2 attack on your opponent's turn. But we can see she drew into another Fungal Mancer here, so definitely the right play to deal with that while she could. But she is facing down a lot of pressure here from CaraCute.
Yeah, this is looking a little bit rough here for Future Shock. CaraCute now has this Hench Clan that she can put out, and again, like you mentioned earlier, she has the second Tar Creeper that she can put that Hench Clan behind, and she's just going to be able to continue taking damage for putting that pressure on and making Future Shock take that damage.
Yeah, I really like her slightly conservative play there in taking out the Flappy Bird. You just never know what will happen if you leave one of those on board. So she could have chosen to push that 4 damage to face and take the risk, but I like that she hasn't done that here.
Yeah, absolutely. I think she's gotten enough stuff on the board here that she kind of has solidified her spot. She is to the point of top decking though, so maybe if CaraCute's worried that the next couple draws are going to be really bad, that yeah, definitely removing the possibility of her opponent coming back on board as much as possible. And it definitely does seem like a pretty good swing turn for Future Shock. CaraCute definitely doesn't have very much damage right now.
She doesn't have very much damage, but Future Shock's health total is very low, and Odd Rogue can burst pretty quickly here. She could choose to Void Ripper here and take out the 3/4 with her dagger, and one of those Argent Squires, probably the one with the shield. That would force. She's seen sort of very slow play from Future Shock. Those minions have been in the hand for a while, so she probably has a sense that they haven't necessarily been optimal for just getting pressure out on the board. So she might be concerned that one of them might be Leroy, and perhaps be a bit worried about putting her own health a little bit low.
So she's going for the Fledgling here. I wonder if she's actually still going to clear this minion with both. No, she just chooses to go face here. So there is that chance now that Future Shock just going to trade into this Fledgling. But like you said, and there's the Leroy that you just mentioned. But, even with that Leroy, CaraCute is still just threatening so much damage.
Yeah, so assuming that the Fledgling gets cleared here, and probably she takes 1 point of damage to clear off one of the other Argent Squire. CaraCute's got three damage showing. She just needs to pick up any additional point of damage here in the next turn.
And there are so many things in her deck that can do that. She has another Cold Blood, another Deadly Poison, the Southsea Deckhands, an SI Agent, Fungalmancers, her Leroy.
Yeah. And we see the deadly poison coming into hand there.
Um,
So some really strong play from CaraCute there to get ahead in the Odd Rogue mirror. So we're playing Last Hero Standing today, a best of 5. What would you expect to see Future Shock looking to counter Q with here?
you know, I feel like the mid-range hunter might be pretty good here. With those secrets, might make it a little bit tricky for Future Shock to get a lot of damage in with some of her minions there, having to play it against freezing traps and the wandering monsters. But she does have aggressive decks because her even paladin was banned. So honestly, I feel like either one is probably pretty good. But I think the hunter might have a little bit of a better chance.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how she goes. I think she'll have to win a slightly unfavored matchup here to sort of get back in the game with both that mid-range hunter and even shaman just being slightly unfavored. But as you said, the mid-range hunter has plenty of options to sort of pull a surprise win out of the bag here. She has gone with the shaman first, so we are going to see that even shaman against the rogue now.
Escape my fury.
So it looks like Future Shock's got a fairly good start here. She's got a couple of Primal Fins and Flame Tongue Totem to take advantage of them. They'll help her out in getting some really early board position here. CaraCute's kept the Thug in the mulligan, and I don't blame her after that did so much work last game. Just waiting to see what she gets back.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I'm kind of interested to see how Future Shock is on the coin this game, so starting out with all of those 2-drops, I'm kind of curious to see how she's going to use the coin. Kind of like how CaraCute, I feel like that's probably not a very common use of the coin, how CaraCute used it last game with that rogue. People tend to save it a little bit to use for those combo things, but CaraCute just used it to just start the aggression early, and so I'm really interested to see how Future Shock's going to use that coin in this game.
Yeah, and she actually did mulligan away one of those Primal Fin totems. So interesting. Like I thought maybe she might go coin one out turn 1 and then look to play the second one turn 2. Then definitely have a board that would be well set up for the Flame Tongue Totem turn 3. Looks like we are going to see the first Primal Fin coined out. And
I like this.
Yeah, I really like the coining out of this too. Just putting the extra body on the board means that it can't be answered easily by the rogue. And CaraCute missing her 1-drop really hurts her in the start of this matchup.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm really interested actually to see this just hero power here. I don't mind either actually playing the Flame Tongue Totem or even that Earthen Might. If she can Earthen Might onto this Primal Fin Totem, just build a big minion up, in these early stages of the game that CaraCute's going to have trouble dealing with. Both of those are pretty good.
And here we see the power of the Void Ripper against the Even Shaman. That card does some work.
Yeah. We have the slightly awkward turn 3 here for Even Shaman. Usually just ends up being a hero power and a 2-drop. A little bit rough though. That 2 damage from the eel doesn't kill this Void Ripper, so Void Ripper is going to get even more value.
So she has a choice of either putting the 2 damage from the Void Ripper in, or she could Earthen Might up the totem here, giving it 4 health, which makes it a little bit tricky for the road to deal with unless they've got a deadly poison, which we can see one sitting in CaraCute's hand ready to go there. So she does go with the Earthen Might play.
Ooh. I think that draw just made turn 4 a little interesting as well. It looks like CaraCute might actually, if she played this turn really quickly, she's going to take that totem out and play out her Dire Maul here. It does remove the only 1-drop, though, from her hand, so she might run into the problem that futureshock had last game, where she's not going to be able to play this Vilespine for a couple turns late, possibly, and at that point it might be a little too late.
I think she's, at this point in the game, she's really just prioritizing keeping the Even Shaman off the board. Probably looking to get in some chip damage where she can, but mainly just making sure that futureshock doesn't have any minions to take advantage of things like the Flame Tongue Totem that can make those hero powers totems actually get some value.
Yeah, absolutely. And Rogue doesn't have big board clears or anything like that, so if you can clear their board as much as possible in these early games and just try to keep ahead on board and, like you said, just keep the board under control, prevent Shaman from getting those extra values, then it's going to look really good for the Rogue.
So we can see that Stoneclaw Totem is actually a little bit awkward for CaraCute here. With the 4-attack weapon up, ideally she doesn't want to be putting that into a totem. So I'd imagine she would hit in with the Ripper first and then clear off the minion here. Probably I would like to would see that Thug played out, but she's actually going to choose to go with the Fledgling here. Perhaps just testing out to see whether there's a Hex in futureshock's hand.
Yeah, that, testing for a Hex I think is really good here as well. She does have this Hench Clan, and again, we're seeing kind of like what she did the first game. I feel like she's just holding this Hench Clan back until she kind of either baits other things out or, until she feels like she just really has a good handle on the board, and then she plays out this Hench Clan that just all of a sudden is this huge threat that the opponent's just struggling to deal with. Yeah, I think CaraCute's just making a huge push here. She saw on turn 5 that all futureshock did was just hero power and then float 4 mana, so...
She goes with the Divine Shield there, protecting it against a... Oh, now you're going to have to help me out. What's the elemental that has the 3 damage? Does the 3 damage?
The 6 mana, it's Arcana Sword?
Yeah, Fire Elemental.
Oh, fire, yes.
Yeah. So she chooses to do the Divine Shield there, offering some protection against that. The other option was to make the minion not targetable by spells, which would have protected against the Hex, but I think after last turn she was pretty confident that it wasn't there. And we can see the power of Vicious Fledgling getting Wind Fury and lethal on that turn.
And I mean, I think that also just comes down to what you were talking about earlier, that CaraCute just got that early start. Even though she missed a 1-drop, she still was able to just kill off those totems, clear the couple threats that futureshock did have, and just, again, took control of the board. And that's, Odd Rogue doesn't have those big removals really other than Vilespine, so if she can control the board, then it definitely looks good for her.
Yeah, we see her doing some excellent work there, getting ahead and using her resources really well to take the position on the board. So that leaves the Hunter for futureshock here to try and get a win against this Odd Rogue. How would you expect to see this one play out?
Oh, well, after those last 2 games, I think it's gonna be a little rough for futureshock if she can't find all those answers. I did mention if she can get those secrets, especially Wandering Monster and the Freezing Traps, if she can find those early, especially with the Spellstone, that's going to help her get on the board and keep the board, hopefully. But if she doesn't find those, if she kind of gets some awkward, bulky hands like she's had, then it's probably going to be a fairly easy game for the rogue.
Now I have to double check. Was Future Shock playing the build with the secrets, or was she playing the one that was just the pure mid range build without the secrets? Maybe that I think with the Timberwolf in hand, it may be that it's the non secret build, and that CaraCute might have had the build with the secrets. So
Yeah, you are right.
That potentially, I think, puts CaraCute in a more favourable position because those secrets can be really hard to navigate. This is going to be a bit more of a straightforward minion versus minion battle.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, I think I did have the deck lists mixed up a little bit there, but yeah, this man, yeah, it's gonna be a little bit difficult for Future Shock here. She's gonna be really relying on getting some good adapts, some good, maybe pulls from Master's Call. She is running one Dire Frenzy as well, so if she can possibly get the board, get a Dire Frenzy on a Rush minion or something also to try to help keep the board, then that could work in her favor, but if she's not able to find that stuff, then it's going to be a little bit rough for her.
And we saw her there with the Timberwolf as the potential one drop, but choosing not to play that out because that can get a lot of value later on. With the sort of all the minions that the hunter deck can generate, you can end up sort of rushing a whole bunch of 1/1 tokens that become 3/1 tokens using the Timberwolf there. CaraCute has taken charge of the board, as we can see, and has no trouble clearing off that Crackling Razormaw.
Yeah, and another reason to hold back the Timberwolf could be that Future Shock knows CaraCute has that coin, and she did see a couple of games ago that Cara actually just coined out that hero power, so she could have done the same thing and just taken out that Timberwolf without a problem.
Yeah, I would have really liked to know whether she would have made that play, because it's not a play that I've seen before, but it does appear to be quite strong.
Yeah. CaraCute seems to just have so many options here. I don't think I even mind her just playing out the Hench Clan, maybe just taking another 4 to face, killing off that Razormaw. And she could possibly coin out that Vilespine next turn.
And I like the attack here from her Diamol into that Timberwolf, just removing the beast from the board, and meaning that kill command in and of itself is not going to get rid of that thug.
Yeah, and removing that potential, extra damage from the rush minions, like you mentioned with the Spring Paw and Lynxes. She knows that those are a possible threat, and if she takes out that extra damage, it just makes it that much harder for Future Shock to clear the minions.
So Future Shock does go ahead and use the kill command here. I'd expect CaraCute to look at continuing her pressure here, trying to get down that Flappy Bird and really forcing Future Shock to continue to have those answers. If we just look at the hand size difference here, CaraCute has so many more resources here than Future Shock.
Absolutely, and I think when you typically think of aggro decks, you don't generally think of a pretty decent hand size. But yeah, the hand size difference here is pretty amazing, and the only thing that Future Shock has here at this point that might help her is this Master's Call. She did just draw this Unleash, which could do a little bit, but CaraCute has done a pretty good job over all these games, actually, of not really going too wide on the board until she's in that just solid position. She is completely taking control of the board, and then she can spread her minions out a little bit more to push face.
And we can see here that Future Shock can deal with the Vicious Fledgling here, with the Candle Shot up and the 2 rush minions. She can also Master's Call to get some additional cards in hand, which I think will be a much welcome reload here.
Yeah, absolutely. Ooh. So these look like some actually pretty decent draws from that Master's Call. Giving this Hyena, especially when the opponent is going to be playing out some minions and possibly could have this Hyena and Unleash the Hounds combo, could be really good here.
Think.
Yeah, that's always a strong one to look out for. And with the Diamol only having one attack, CaraCute's actually run a bit low on options here. I wonder if we even see a Tempo Vilespine here, just to get a beefier minion on board, to potentially be able to hold up more of those Cold Bloods next turn.
Yeah. I mean, it's a little bit awkward. I feel like she wants to apply that pressure, but the difficult thing is she can't really play these Cold Bloods on this one health Dire Mole because it's gonna die so easily. I mean, Future Shock still has this Candle Shot as well, so she could easily just use the Candle Shot there and take out the Dire Mole.
I think I like her just playing the Deadly Poison here to get that ready to go. She chooses to keep it for potential bursts later on.
Yeah, and I also think going into turn 6, she has that dagger up, and it'd be really easy to just use a Deadly Poison plus a Vilespine next turn.
So Future Shock here has the option of playing Rexar, which would allow the board to be cleared, and gain her the 5 armor. Do you think that in this matchup she would rather have the steady shot, or would she rather be building beasts?
No, I think she's really going to want to start searching for stuff. Also, the fact that last turn she didn't have any minions on board, and she saw CaraCute just... she played out one Dire Mole and just redaggered, and then floated some mana. When, there are plenty of 3 drops she could have played along with that dagger instead of just a Dire Mole floating. So I like the just use of picking up that, just put the Rexar out there. My board's still clear. Maybe she's getting a read that CaraCute's hand is just a little bit awkward. She could have a read that there's a Vilespine, or just really stuff that Cara doesn't want to be playing right now. So get that out while the board's already clear. Clear your opponent's board, and yeah, start building up some beasts that you could potentially charge out with this Tundra Rhino, or maybe get some other poisonous things to clear any minions that you could play next.
So I think CaraCute here now will be just looking to see how quickly she can damage her opponent with the Leroy double Cold Blood in hand. She doesn't need to get her down close to 0. That's 14 damage from hand there. So as long as Future Shock doesn't get taunt minions, that'll enable her to push that damage through. Chooses not to play out the Deadly Poison and get the extra 2 points of damage there. Just hero power passing, and that'll leave Future Shock with a lot of questions about what those 6 cards are in hand.
Yeah, I think I still like holding on to this Deadly Poison, just as a trigger for the Vilespine, or even Deadly Poison to trigger those Cold Bloods if she's able to get the Leroy down or get some type of minion down. Also, if CaraCute can draw into her green skin here, she can buff up the weapon and then play Deadly Poison on top of that even. This is a pretty beefy little chicken we actually see here.
We do, and we might finally see this this Deadly Poison come out to be able to deal with that beefy chicken. Although, even with that, I would expect her to put her face into the Diamol and then Vilespine down the chicken. Taking less damage here. She's got to be a little bit careful of her health, because she has seen one of the kill commands out of Future Shock's deck already, so that limits the burst that she has. But those beasts that you can build, I've seen some amazing charging beasts come out of Rexar, so needs to be a little bit careful with the damage that could just come flying back at her face.
Yeah, absolutely. And this trade here feels a little bad. You don't really want to be taking out such small minions when you have this deadly poison. And like you said, one kill command's already been played, but she does still have to think about the hyena, maybe Tundra Rhino. That dire frenzy could be potentially scary for her as well. So I think I'm wondering if we're gonna just see another build of beast here. Just try to find more answers, try to find more things to keep a hold of the game.
Yeah, with the Tundra Rhino in hand, if she can build up a decent-sized beast, perhaps one with Wind Fury, and then look to be charging that at CaraCute's face, she could potentially get in a lot of damage in one turn here. Chooses to first have a look and see what she can pull from her own deck here before going with the build of beast. Giving her more cards in hand, but limiting the ability to play the beast this turn. And she has actually just chosen a beast that has stats that she can play. And nicely for her, it's a taunt minion with poison as well.
Yes, but no, we do see that CaraCute does have the second Vile Spine, which she could use and then start pushing some damage. It could set up some minions on board as well that would set her up for a nice Fungalmancer turn. Maybe she's a little worried, though, about wanting to save the Vile Spine for something bigger that could come out of that Rexar.
So another option here would be to Cold Blood as the sort of initial activator, or even Fungalmancer if she is okay with losing the second minion buff, and then SI and use SI in her face to take down this 3/5. If she Cold Bloods first, that allows her to push 5 damage, which seems relatively good. But she is going to go with the Vile Spine here. And chooses to hold back one of the Cold Bloods, perhaps looking to combo that as some unexpected burst with Leroy in a couple of turns.
Yeah, absolutely. And she might be wanting to save this SI agent for some of futureshock's smaller minions too. But
And
I don't
actually,
think I would have minded.
With the damage on board, if Futureshock doesn't get a taunt up, that's actually lethal with Leroy and Cold Blood in hand. So Futureshock will either need to clear these minions, or she'll need to get some sort of healing or taunt to get in the way to prevent this Leroy Cold Blood dagger plus the minions from just being the end of the game.
And there was the possibility last turn of CaraCute using that SI agent first. She did have 8 mana. She could have just played out SI agent to trigger that Vile Spine. She wouldn't have pushed quite as much damage, but it also does play a little bit more into Unleash the Hound, so she might be considering trying to keep her board size as small as possible with hopefully as much damage as possible.
So I found this a really interesting choice that she chose to go with the Tundra Rhino to clear rather than the Unleash the Hounds. It looks like she really is holding that Unleash for as big a swing turn as possible.
Yeah. Yeah, maybe just to combo it with that hyena, or even just to combo it with that wolf. But I'm not sure how much value she's going to end up getting out of it, so holding it for too long, it might just really kind of be a liability to her at this point. It might just be a dead card.
So this is an interesting position. CaraCute wants to be pushing damage, but that Tundra Rhino is dangerous. You don't want to leave those up if you can help it. So
Absolutely.
I'd expect to see the Fungalmancer and then maybe using that Vile Spine to take out the Rhino here.
Yeah,
She may also...
Looks like she is going to go the Fungalmancer. Again, she has this Leroy Coldblood for next turn, like you said, just holding on to that Coldblood to use there. And now she has a lot of damage on the board as well. Might be a little bit difficult for Future Shock to take out all of this health that's on the board. She might have to try to find a beast. You know, maybe if she can find a Cave Hydra, rush type thing, she can easily deal with the board. But
Yeah, it's certainly going to be tricky. Just Timberwolf plus Unleash would allow her to clear the Vicious Fledgling here, but that would leave 7 attack worth of minions on the board. So she's going to go tracking for a start to see, and gets the kill command, which does give her a good way of dealing with one of the 5 attack minions. So I think that now with the Unleash and the Timberwolf will allow her to clear the board.
so I think she's just using this Unleash the Hounds now, thinking she might not get much more value out of it. It also sets up her kill command, so she will get some good clears here. And now she kind of puts the board back on her side. She's already seen both Biospines as well, so this Hyena might be fairly safe in her eyes.
Yeah, so we can see that the Hyena is actually a little bit of a challenge for CaraCute to deal with, unless she does want to use Leroy to take it out. I think this really comes down to what sort of risks she wants to take at this point. Does she want to focus on taking the risk that Hyena gets Wind Furied in some way next turn, and that's end of game? So she could just push damage as much as possible this turn herself, setting herself up for that lethal off the back, or does she look to clear here and take things a little bit slower?
Yeah, and I'm not sure. Early in the game, both Razor Mods were already played, so I don't think there's a possibility that this Hyena could get Wind Fury. But also the threat of that Dire Frenzy still in there too. It is open deck list, so having one card in the deck that just your opponent knows is there and they just don't know when it's coming is also kind of a huge threat.
Yeah, so I find that she used the SI there to take off the Timberwolf, which was buffing the Hyena up by 1 attack, and in killing it, actually buffed the Hyena by an extra attack. What do you think of that play? What would she have been looking for to do there?
I think she's probably just trying to keep that off the board so that there's kind of other rush minions. Also, with that Rexar out, she doesn't know what Future Shock can find from that hero power, so if Future Shock were to find some type of charge minion, having that extra little bit of damage from the Diremo there, or the Wolf, could help. Or even if Future Shock finds a Rush Lifesteal minion that now all of a sudden gives extra lifesteal because of that Wolf. Maybe she just thinks, hey, Future Shock doesn't have lethal, so I don't care about just giving this one minion a little buff, but yeah, it didn't really feel good either way, I think.
And we see here Future Shock's concerned enough about the damage that CaraCute might have to
And
take
she does have it, though.
off the minion, but we can see that she has the Leroy and Cold Blood, which allow the attacks to come in here, and that's a full sweep for that Odd Rogue there.
Wow. That was...
So wow, what a dominant performance.
Yeah, absolutely, just taking it, and we saw that in the NA match last night as well, where just one deck ended up sweeping the whole series. And, that definitely can happen in Last Hero Standing. Sometimes it doesn't feel that good, but that's also part of the strategy. There is a lot of strategy to it, and does this come into the bans? I think you mentioned that you might have actually banned the Hunter instead of the Eden Paladin there. So do you think the ban could have played a role there?
Yeah, the hunter band that I was talking about would have been instead of the OTK paladin, but we saw CaraCute sweep with the odd rogue anyway, so in that case, I guess we would have seen a very similar scenario. I think this one mainly came down to deck choices and lineup building. So we saw futureshock go in with that very aggressive lineup, and once she lost to the odd rogue, it was very hard for her to have a counter back against that. She just didn't really have a control deck that was able to lock out that odd rogue.
Yeah, and unfortunately, she could have had some fairly aggressive starts with some of those decks, and she just really didn't. That even shaman kind of faltered a bit there. She did mulligan away a 2-drop that, like you said, she could have potentially coined out a 2, played out the other one into a turn 3, but it just didn't end up working out for her, and she ended up with a really bulky hand that game, and so that was a bit unfortunate for her.
Yeah, it's often the way with the aggro decks. If you don't get the draw you're looking for, it can be really tough to come back on board if your opponent sort of seizes that early control. So an amazing performance by CaraCute there. Really using some of her resources exceptionally well, especially in those first couple of games. But also we could see in that last game measuring up her opponent's chance at lethal against her need to push herself. So some really good work there. Okay, so that's all we've got time for today. But next week we'll be bringing you more fabulous matches on the stream here. And it's the final week of the Swiss rounds. So this next week will be do or die for some players. And I'm sure we'll have some very exciting matches for you all. So if you'd like to make sure that you know when they're going to be played, give this channel a follow. That's Badass Woman HS. And then choose to be notified when the stream goes live. You can also follow us on Twitter at Badass Woman HS. And there'll be tweets about the upcoming streams. I'd also really recommend that you follow both the players from today. We'll be showing you their social media in a second. Fabulous players, and like I said earlier, really some of Asia's best women Hearthstone players, and I really recommend that you get behind both of them. So thank you very much, Dragonrider, for another fabulous cast. It's always a pleasure to be casting with you.
Thank you.
And from both of us, good night, everyone.